When we're talking about confidence, it's not uniform, right? Or it's not automatically uniform, right? So if you were to tell me, oh, I lack confidence, right? Then I want to understand, is that across the board? Is that a way that you feel about yourself? That like, I'm not good enough at anything, for example, right? Or do you lack confidence in a specific area, right? And this is often the case, right? And it's a huge difference, right? It says that person has the machinery of confidence, so to speak, right? They have the potentialities and the predispositions for confidence, right? When that character structure, the self built upon it, is engaging with the world, right? But they're not able to bring it to bear in a certain special situation, so to speak. So for some people, for example, the way we most often see this is like the carve out of romance, right? Where because it's so emotionally laden, right? And like rejection can feel so bad, right? That we can see people who are very confident in many, many aspects of life, but they are very diffident about romance. And they'll say diffident, oh, it never works out for me, or no one will ever like me, right? And you see, like, that's not how that person actually feels, right? About themselves as a whole human being, right? Which is then we are coming at how to make that better in a way that's very robust, right? We might say something like, hey, here's the good news is you have the tools and the machinery that you need, right? You're confident in so many ways, right? In fact, maybe in all ways, except this one. So let's go take a look at like, why is that special, right? And where are we? We're back to, is it something in the unconscious mind? Is it something in the conscious mind about how that person is engaging, right? So we have to understand what the state is, and if the lack of confidence is state dependent. If the person is not confident across the board, then again, we always go back to the same places to look, right? But then you might more think, okay, is there an impact of childhood trauma or early life trauma that took away from that person, their ability to gain confidence, right? Because if you have no confidence across the board, there's a deeper problem, right? Because there would be something anyone can be good at and feel confident in, right? So the state dependence is very important, as is phenomenology. So what is your experience of being confident? If you tell me, well, let's say in a different version of this example, you say, actually, I feel quite confident when I walk into a room of people. You say, okay, I want to understand more about that too, right? Because if I ask questions about that and you say, well, I feel confident because, look, I'm a pretty smart person. I can think on my feet. I can deal well with people. If something doesn't go right, I can recover from it. Like I've got, that's why I feel confident, and say, okay, that sounds pretty good. If you say, well, I feel confident because I know that I'm better than everybody, right? Now we have a problem, right? Right? Like that's not going to go well in other aspects of life and engagement. Like there's, it's not going to lead to humility and gratitude. Like so where's that coming from? And again, maybe there's a deeper problem, right? As you said about narcissism, right? Which can be a reaction, right? Which is a reaction to vulnerability, right? So then there's what's called a reaction formation, and now the person is actually deeply diffident, right? But presents as very, very confident and with a sense of superiority, and that's not a recipe for happiness, right? So in approaching it, we do want to understand all the things that you said. What are the factors and the set of predispositions and the set of potentialities? But then what's the real world experience of that across situations, and what is the person's experience of that inside? Which is why if we're going to understand and help people, like that's the understand part, right? It's why the conveyor belt medicine, it doesn't work, right? In situations where we're dealing with human beings, like mental health, right? We have to understand something about people to understand whatever they're telling us means. Otherwise, you have no context, so you have no knowledge.